or an honorable profession. Therefore, I asked my associates to research what was the real position of lawyers in the days of yore. And they came out with something which was startling. And this is something written by James A. Brundage, professor in the University of Kansas. And he starts by saying, and the title, I'm afraid, is Vultures and Hypocrites. He says, criticism of the legal profession in American society in recent years has become so common and at times so virulent and mean-spirited that lawyers sometimes feel uneasy about this deterioration in the of their public image. And then he goes on to write some things which is unreadable. I wouldn't like to read it to you. But he also extracts a small little poem and introduces it by saying, the venomous tongue was a common metaphor for an advocate in medieval literature, as was legal jargon. The tale of the devil's marriage combined the two themes, and this is what the poem says. Advocates do a lot of harm, whereby they put their souls at risk. Their tongues are full of venom, whereby inheritances are lost. They have poisoned many a good marriage and done evil just for a jar of wine. Now, this is how was a public perception of lawyers. But fortunately, we in India have a very high opinion, not only ourselves, but I think the members of the public, judges also have a very high opinion, except for a few aberrations. And this continues even today, because they have given me some material. On the 18th of July, 1997, The Economist investigated the state of the lawyers throughout the world. And they came out with this finding. They found that so far as the legal profession was concerned, it was a savagely competitive profession. The lawyers in Japan would never get a house or a flat on rent. And if they are known to be lawyers, then it was straightaway refused. A number of lawyers, both in the United States and in England, used to pad their fees, so that for the same hour of work, they used to charge 3-4 clients at the same time. The number of acts of indiscipline and misconduct in England was so great that so far as the Law Society was concerned, it was unable to cope up with it. They passed a law and appointed an ombudsman to deal with those cases. For by and large, one would be entitled to say that we are far better off as a noble profession than what was there much earlier. But I said there are aberrations, and that is what I think we will have to see whether we can avoid it and improve on ourselves. One, the strikes. Now, workers have gone on strike, trade unionists have gone on strike, but no lawyer has struck in any other part of the world except India. Secondly, so far as they are concerned, if they got a protest, they take a march. They dislocate traffic. They're not, but this of course happens once in 3 years, once in 5 years, when they have a real problem. Therefore, so far as we are concerned, we have to correct ourselves. And what was surprising was, for years and years, the Bar Council of India never took the trouble to find out what was the real number of lawyers. And according to their count, there were 1.3 million lawyers in this country, which was a little greater than the total number of lawyers in the United States. Now, the law was amended for the purpose of verification of the actual numbers who were practicing. Therefore, a deadline was set. Applications were invited, and it was announced that it is only those who applied before that date who would be entitled to continue to practice. All the others would be excluded. Now, this law was upheld, and so far as the Bar Council of India is concerned, it started gathering evidence materials. But what is shocking was, throughout the country, in state after state, because I was appearing for the Bar Council of India, only 40% to 60% of the lawyers applied for being recognized after verification and continued so that they can continue practice. For if you take 50% as an average of 1.3 million, we are straightaway reduced to about 65,000 lawyers on the whole. And therefore, this would mean that a large number of lawyers had died, but the state bar councils were inefficient. They never tried to find out by sending letters and eliciting responses as to who are the real number of lawyers who were practicing. Many of them had taken jobs, many of them had gone abroad, and many of them had died. Not a single one was recorded, and that's how we came to 1.3 million. But to the utter shock of the Bar Council, it found that there were a very large number of fake lawyers. They put on a jacket, they put on a gown, and they practiced. Many of them were discovered in Allahabad and many other states, and they were sent home. Now, this would mean that so far as the lawyers, our profession is concerned, we have to improve. And I think there are 2 or 3 things which are required. One, so far as the old rule was concerned, there was a bar exam. When the bar exam was held, people objected, and the students did not want to continue the bar exam. Secondly, there was apprenticeship. Now, during my time, I had to do apprenticeship, a year under a senior lawyer. It was excellent because so far as senior lawyers were concerned and other lawyers, they were bound to take the law graduate, at least one, and they could not say no, because the Bar Council would come down heavily on them. And therefore, even those from the rural areas, every single young graduate lawyer was entitled to work under a senior lawyer. That's gone. Now, we don't have a continuing legal education. All the Western common law countries have continuing legal education. Very senior lawyers, the top lawyers, they have to undergo CLE. And in our case, our law graduates practice, and they come and go to court immediately because they do not have a godfather to take them. And therefore, without any expertise, as it were, and training, they go in for the argument of cases. And perhaps the judges would follow them also because they are not fully prepared. And therefore, I think continuing legal education is totally necessary. Now, we have to pull ourselves up by our socks. There are tremendous complaints against lawyers, some of the very many of them, as a result of which, so far as the elections are concerned, the Bar Council of India and the state bar councils, I think, have to be modernized. They had to be changed. The half of the members had to be nominated by the High Court, according to me. Half of them will be elected. That is because there are so many complaints about the certification of law schools. A very large number of law schools are put up for the purpose of inspection, and thereafter the books disappear, the furniture disappears, the faculty disappears. Now, this is not a very good state of affairs. But nevertheless, I am in a position to say the very large majority of cases of lawyers in these countries, both in urban areas, in the high courts, in the Supreme Court, as well as in the rural areas, they are dedicated people who do a lot of pro bono work, and have excellent records of themselves. They have a large amount of self-respect. And so far as we, the lawyers of India, are concerned, I think by and large, we are far superior, perhaps, to these lawyers who have, of other countries who have not proved themselves to be in the same category. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Venugopal. I think you are very right that it does require some introspection and some soul searching so far as the Indian legal profession is concerned. But the examples you see which you gave about the position in the US and UK, fortunately we do not have such a sad state of affairs in this country because we have a legacy of having very meritorious, committed, sincere members of the legal profession. I'm reminded, I read somewhere, it was about the jokes about lawyers in the US, and there was a tombstone on the grave which read, you see, "Here lies an honest lawyer." That means there was such a rarity in the United States that it had to be commented upon that here lies, you see, an honest lawyer. But in India, I can say with some daring certainty that we do have honest, dedicated, and sincere lawyers. But at the same time, what Mr. Venugopal has said definitely merits very serious consideration, particularly from those who are going to join the legal profession also, that they must have something in their mind to give it back to the society, because it is society which creates you as successful lawyers. Therefore, you must keep always in mind, you see, what you can give back to the society. That is an integral part of our legal system, of our legal education, of the legal legacy that we have. Friends, I'll read one quote from Dr. Rajendra Prasad when he inaugurated the Bar Association of India way back in 1960. About the Bar Association, he says, "A body like this can help in resolving many of the difficulties which may arise and in guiding public opinion in the country, and if I may say so, also members of legislatures in whose hands power of legislation is vested." We do find now that the system is under some stress of you see, some strain is there, some stress is there on the system itself, whether it is the judiciary or it is the government, and there would be no better person than our Honorable Chief Guest today, Honorable Justice A.P. Shah, to share his thoughts on this very, very important issue, among others.
Good evening to Mr. K.K. Venugopal, the Attorney General of India, Mr. Fali Nariman, Mr. Lalit Vasin, Mr. Prashant Kumar, Mr. Yakesh Anand, Ms. Rachna Srivastav, and to all the distinguished members of the audience. It is a real privilege and honor to be here on Lawyers India Day, which is the celebration of the birth of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, especially since the Bar Association of India is felicitating great legal luminaries